What's going on, everyone? Philly Insider here. Just under tonight, late night live. Obviously, a very boring game, and it got delayed a number of times. Did not start till 8 p.m. So I honestly don't blame Drew for not hopping in this one. There's really not a lot that's exciting to talk about from this game. To be quite honest, one of the more boring games of Phillies baseball I've watched in some time, and that's saying a lot given how bad some of the Phillies games have been over the years. So yeah, welcome in if you guys are watching. I see you already got a couple people in here. Ben, welcome in. Good to see you in here. Yeah, that's how I think we're all feeling after tonight. Obviously, an exaggeration. I'm not going to go that far, but I get what you're saying though. Like, it's not really where you want to be coming out of the first homestand of the year, especially after all that talk of the team saying, they were going to start out fast this year. I just did not see, I haven't seen that from the team at all. And it's not just that they're losing, it's the way they're losing. And we're going to get into that. So Steve, welcome in. Good to see you in here. Andrew says sad time. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That not the most exciting game to be watching, if we're being quite honest. Yeah, really ugly game, Steve. Really ugly game. I mean, I don't think there's any other way to put it, honestly. Again, like I said, there's really not a lot to talk about from this game. Just an absolutely brutal watch if you guys were all watching it. Like Steve said, it was just lifeless, and it did not look like they wanted to be out there, to be quite honest. It looked like they were maybe hoping the game was going to get postponed, and then the game happened, and they were just like, well, Wheeler's pitching a gem, but who cares? Let's just get home. Let's get home. Let's get warm. It didn't look like anyone wanted to be out there. And granted, would I have wanted to play baseball in that weather? No, but it's also your job at the end of the day. And we got a number of guys to talk about. I'm going to start on a positive note. Zach Wheeler threw a gem tonight. Unfortunately, it was wasted. That has been a trend through the Phillies' first 6 games here. Sanchez threw a gem the other day, got wasted. Wheeler's gem opening day, got wasted. So that's the 4th time that's happened now where you had a really good start from your starting pitcher or what was it? No, 3rd time, I guess. But 3rd time that happened where you had a really good start from your starting pitcher and you just couldn't capitalize on it. So not something you want to see in the early going, especially when that's the case, because that means you're not giving them run support and or not backing them up on the defensive end. And that's exactly what happened tonight. I mean, they had 2 errors in the field. I get it. The conditions were not great. Unfortunate. JT had one that didn't go down in the book as an error, and that was a tough play. The wind really made things difficult. The slippery conditions made things difficult. Totally get that. But at the end of the day, you do got to make some of those plays or at least limit the damage there, because then that's forcing Wheeler to throw more pitches than he needs to. And 2 of the runs he gives up tonight out of the 3 were unearned. So the guy has a .75 ERA to start the year. I think he has a .75 whip as well. You really can't blame him for anything. And he now comes away from those first 2 starts 0-1. Just another indictment on pitcher wins and losses as as a point of reference. They're not a good stat. I don't know how you can look at these first 2 Wheeler starts and still have that conclusion if you do. But point being, he was phenomenal tonight. He only gives up 3 hits, had 1 walk, so he only gives up 4 base runners as a whole. I think he hit a guy too. He hit India. So he did give up 5 base runners, but strikes out 10. And on a night where you didn't want the ball to be in play very much, he did his job in that department. I mean, you can only strike out so many guys. The guys are going to put the ball in play, right? In my opinion, I don't know if there's much more that he could have done tonight. He was awesome, and it just sucks that they waste 2 ace starts from their ace to start this season. So that's what I got on Zach Wheeler, man. I mean, I think everything was moving pretty well. He certainly didn't have his best stuff tonight, but the fact that he can still dominate despite not having his best stuff, that's who Wheeler is at this point, and you love to see that out of him. But then we get to the lineup, and you had 6 hits tonight. 6. And granted, the Reds also had 6 hits, but they also had 1, 2, 3, 4 extra base hits tonight, maybe 5. So yeah, I think it was 4. But point being, they had 4 of those were extra base hits, so they got a guy in scoring position immediately. Yeah, we walked 4 times, but it felt like we couldn't get a guy past first base. It felt like we were very deep in the count a lot of the time. We struck out 10 times tonight. A lot of ugly swing and misses. The lineup was just garbage. There's no other way to put it. And surprisingly, Kyle Schwarber has been awesome to start this year. Not surprisingly, it's just he tends to be a slow starter. He has been awesome. I mean, he's hitting 280 right now. He's got an above 800 OPS, 828 now with that walk tonight too. And he hits an absolute laser into the right field stands. And he has a strikeout tonight, but he's not striking out nearly as much as he was to start last year. And granted, it's 6 games. Do want to pump the brakes there. But you got to be pleased with what Kyle Schwarber is doing to start this season. I think he's had very productive at-bats in the leadoff spot. I think he has very much silenced the put him in the cleanup hole fans. Some of them not so much, but a lot of them who complain about the strikeouts and the boomer bust, they have been silenced, at least for the time being. I'm sure they're waiting to see what happens the rest of the year, but I feel like he's still seeing a good number of pitches every single at bat. Schwarber's done a great job setting the table, but then you have Turner strikes out twice tonight. Harper, I felt like he was close a couple times, but he does have the infield single. I think it was infield single in the early going. Didn't do anything after that. Realmuto had a couple ugly strikeouts despite having the hit tonight. Stott, again, just a little bit of an off night for him. He's had a couple hard hit baseballs that have been caught, unfortunately. I still am not really upset about him. And don't apologize, Steven. I'm going to get to your comments. No need to apologize for venting. I'm right there with you. I'm just kind of going through my thoughts, but then I'm going to get to yours for sure. So my apologies for not getting there right now. But yeah, no need to apologize for that. Stott also works a walk tonight. He's been working walks much more often to start the year. I think he has 4 now in 6 games. So that's a much better pace than he had last year, where he only had, I think, 39 the whole season. That's something we said yesterday in the pod too. Love that. Castellanos. He's been the beneficiary of a lot of really bad ball strike calls, and they've gone in his favor almost every time. I mean, he's had a couple that have just been right over the heart of the plate and that have just not been called. I don't know how Castellanos has gotten away with that multiple times now, but he looks completely lost up there. We have talked about that just about every post-game pod of the season so far, and it's only been 6 games. And he gets picked off tonight, too. That's unacceptable. You can't do that. I don't know where he thought he was going on the base paths, but he looks completely lost. They said it post-game. He's late on the fastball. He's early on the breaking ball. I don't know what you do with him at this point. You just have to ride it out. He's a $20 million a year player, but I don't know if I foresee this getting any better, to be quite honest. And what happened tonight was just, again, flat out unacceptable. And he probably should have been 0 for 4, if we're being honest. So the last walk actually was, he did work that walk, but 0 for 3 regardless with 2 strikeouts. That being said, Marsh has been better. 1 for 4. The single was really nice. He also had a hard hit baseball that got caught, I believe, earlier in the game. But he does come up with bases loaded, lefty on lefty. A lot of people have been campaigning for him to get more reps versus lefties, myself included. I didn't necessarily expect him to come through in that spot, but I think it's good for him to get those reps. Pops out to third base, unproductive at bat, and the inning ends. So that was another really unfortunate situation. He's got to come through there, but he's been seeing the baseball well and hitting the baseball really well to start the season. So I'm not going to get too upset with him, but he does need to become more than a platoon player long-term, in my opinion. But it's early in the season, so we'll see how that progresses. Merrifield, in my opinion, has not been great to start the year. He gets that hit. I thought his last at-bat, granted, the game felt over. It was 4-1 in the 9th. We're down to our last out and last strike. Merrifield works I think it was a 10-pitch at-bat, loops one out to center field. I mean, that's vintage Merrifield. That's what he does. I'm hoping that is some sort of momentum boost for him going into whenever his next start is, because up until that point, he had the one other looper in an earlier game, and he hadn't done anything outside of that. So he's had a little bit of a rough start to the season. I'm hoping it's not a Josh Harrison-esque season. I don't think it will be, but I don't know if he's going to be worth the $8 million. We will find out. It's only 6 games, but he has not been great to start this year, in my opinion, but I do like what he did in the last at-bat. And Rojas, he gets his first hit tonight, an infield single, swinging that way too hard, in my opinion. I think they said it perfectly on the broadcast. He needs to start to try to take the baseball the other way, especially when it's on the outside part of the plate, and let it travel. Let it travel in the strike zone. Let it get deep, and just take it the other way. I mean, I don't have too many other solutions for him at this point. He's had a lot of really bad at-bats to start this year, and Bohm comes in, pinch hits for him, gets 2 at-bats in the game. Didn't do much, but, I mean, that's where we're at with Rojas. You can't play him the full game because of where his bat is at this point, and it just feels inevitable he's going down to AAA. So that's my thoughts on the lineup. We're going to get to the bullpen in a second, but we do got some comments here. So I want to get to some of these. Steven, I mean, literally what I just said, says Rojas swinging for the fence every single at bat. Yeah, I mean, I really can't disagree with that. That's what it looks like right now, Steven. I think it's pretty simple. You You got to be able to, especially a player like him. We're not looking for big home runs from you. I get that he's not able to. We actually got Drew hopping on here in a minute, so we'll get his thoughts here too. But yeah, I mean, you just can't be swinging for the fences every at bat when you're that like profile of hitter, right? Like he's just not that type of guy who should be swinging for an extra base hit every single time. I just need him to make quality contact, and you're not going to do that. You're not going to do that by doing what he's doing right now. So I think it's just going to he's just going to have to go down to the minors, figure it out, honestly. But yeah, I mean, I don't really know what else to say about Rojas at this point. I think that's kind of where we're at with him. I don't foresee a lot of improvement from him moving forward, at least at the major league level. Right now, I mean, should be said, I certainly think there's room for improvement down the road, right? But right now, the best thing for him is to be in AAA, in my opinion. Get a few more comments here. Castellanos looks lost in every aspect, hitting, fielding, running. Yeah, even in right field, like nothing necessarily too bad. The one he probably should have caught, but he looks lost out there too. I think it's become a mental thing with him at this point, and I don't feel great about him right now. I am pretty concerned, honestly. Again, I said that before, but I don't know what the solution is there either. It's been the same thing the last 6 games. Too many strikeouts, bad base running, and too many errors. Yeah, and again, like I talked about, you thought the way they were talking about going into the season that they were going to come in and play more fundamental baseball right off the bat. And it's been much of the same from last year. Like you said, the base running mistakes still an issue. I don't know how that, some of it's just so little league. I can't believe they're doing it. The fielding, I mean, again, just some routine plays that they got to make. Tonight, I'll give some of them a pass because of the conditions, but still, some plays you just got to make. And yeah, the free swinging at the plate it's got to stop. But hopefully Dustin Lind, who came in this offseason, can help with that as the season progresses. You need live game reps and you need that sample size to work with first, but some of it's ugly right now. Sully, welcome in. Good to see you in here. He says, this might be dumb, but it's hard to put stock into this game. I'm with you on that. I think that's fair. It was a very weird night, a very weird game, and I'm not really super concerned about that. There's just some things with the team overall. And now looking at a full 6-game sample size, I'm like, I just don't know. There's some things I'm like, I just don't know where you go from here with it. And there's other things I'm like, all right, I'm encouraged by this. So that's kind of how I'm taking it. But I agree with you. Like you said, tonight doesn't take away what happened yesterday. Weather was horrible. Players wanted the day to end. We'll be okay. Yeah, absolutely. It's a full 162 solely. I'm not super concerned about it. But yeah, still an ugly game at the end of the day. But yeah, I think you said it well. Cassie Carter says, welcome in, Carter. Good to see you in here. Says, Cassie needs to work on his hitting every at bat. I watch. He swings at down and away sliders, and he always gets struck out in clutch situations. Yeah, I mean, that pretty much sums it up, right? Like, I don't have anything else to add on to that. I think you pretty much said it. Hit the nail on the head with that one, Carter. Steven says, do you think they messed up not strengthening their bench, especially with Merrifield starting, who scares you? Sosa, Pache, Rojas, or Stubbs? Yeah, I mean, the bench has always kind of been a concern over the past couple of years. Now, granted, I think I don't know if I could say they expected Rojas to play this way early in the season, but if you could have foreseen that coming, which I don't think it was super outlandish to, granted, once they committed to him and they kind of showed they weren't interested in the guys in the outfield market, I was like, all right, they invested the resource in Rojas. You might as well see what he can do. I didn't think he was going to be this bad. I thought, I didn't think he was hitting at a 300 level last year, despite the numbers. But I certainly thought he would hit at a 220, 230 level to start the season. It's early. He could still hit at that level. I just don't see it happening with the way he's approaching every at bat right now. But that being said, I was much more of the thought, and welcome in, Drew. We got Drew in here. Good to see you. I was much more of the thought that they should look into getting an outfield bat before the season started. And that was before I felt like they really made their stance on Rojas and said, we're going to give him the shot to start the season. But I was much more of that stance. So then you could strengthen the bench a little bit just by not having a guy in the lineup and getting a guy in the offseason like a Tyler O'Neill, who I really wanted, who's been pretty solid for the Red Sox so far. But as far as the bench goes, yeah, I mean, I think Merrifield still strengthens the bench, but obviously has not been good to start the year. But if he plays well, I think having a 10th man like that does help. But look, I think Sosa, he is what he is at this point. he's a solid utility infielder. I don't think he's much more than that. Stubbs, it's hard to find backup catchers. He's another guy. He is what he is. He's probably playing 40 games. And then Pache, I think, is a good platoon with Marsh. I think he kind of just walked into getting here in a perfect situation to where he's still going to play a lot when Marsh is not hitting against lefties. So I don't know. I mean, they could always do things to strengthen the bench, but I think that using the money on Merrifield made sense, even though I wasn't a huge fan of it at the time. So any thoughts on that, Drew?
Yeah, I mean, I think Merrifield's probably one of the better bench bats that are going to be out there. I mean, in any given offseason, because if they're a bench player, I mean, typically they're not starting caliber. And I mean, Merrifield was that last year up until the All-Star break. And then after that, he just his body broke down on him, I think. But yeah, I mean, I think you can't have too high expectations for bench players just in general because, I mean, they're bench players for a reason, or they would be starting somewhere else.
Right. Yeah. And any thoughts on the lineup and Zach Wheeler today? I kind of already talked about all that, but kind of the lineup, honestly.
Yeah, the lineup was pretty brutal, to be honest with you. I mean, the only right-handed hitter that's doing anything is JT at this point. I mean, Bohm's looked a little bit okay, but Trey hasn't been doing too much, and Castellanos is just we know the story. But I mean, yeah, the lineup's just been struggling really bad, and I think I saw somebody on Twitter talking about it. Like, it looks like the position players just aren't ready. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, the pitching's been mostly fine for the most part after the first couple of days, and the hitting just hasn't kept up with them at all.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said, Drew. They've now wasted a Sanchez start and 2 Wheeler starts. They could realistically it could be easily 4-2 right now. And they should be 4-2, but they get no run support and they get no defense behind them. And you had 2 unearned runs today. So I get the conditions were rough and that was a cause of some of the errors, but you still got to make some of those plays too.
Yeah, that error that Stott made was unacceptable. I mean, there's just no reason for that.
Yeah. Steven says it's funny with Castellanos every time the ball is hit down right field. Castellanos is nowhere in the picture. It looks like he's in center. Yeah, well, that's the thing is they moved him over to right center because he's a little quicker coming into a baseball, like going towards the foul line and coming in. He's a little quicker going that direction than he is going to right center. But now you're seeing the other side of that where there's a lot of baseballs being hit down the line. So it is what it is with him. Like, I'm not going to be complaining about his fielding relative to him getting picked off tonight and then him also just being an absolute zero at the plate right now. But it does look like the mental stuff is transferring as well to the way he's fielding the baseball and the way he's kind of backtracking on the baseball down the line too. I don't know. Little things that it's just like he doesn't look confident out there. So I don't have anything else to say on Castellanos outside of that.
Yeah, Castellanos has just been terrible. There's really no other way to say anything about him at this point. Until he does something else.
Right. And I do want to talk about the bullpen like Carter brings up. Yeah, I thought the bullpen, I mean, Nick Nelson was what Nick Nelson is. You know, he pitched an inning, he gave up a couple hits, he gave up a run. He's going to be a mop-up guy. That's pretty much the extent of what he'll do. He's just there to eat that inning tonight. We're down 3-1. That was his job. But as far as Soto and Marte go, Marte continues to look very good to start the season. I mean, I think he's looked very impressive. I think the sinker has been awesome. It's always been awesome, but I think it's looked exceptionally awesome the start of this year. I think he's looked a lot better. As far as Soto goes, I was encouraged by his outing tonight. You know, he did give up the hit, but he gets 3 strikeouts in his inning, and it looked like they were completely lost, the Reds were. And maybe it's just different caliber of opponent that could have played into it too, but he was getting the fastball by guys, and the slider looked really, really good. So I was encouraged by those 2 guys tonight. I mean, I think the bullpen was really good. Yeah,
I wasn't watching in the 7th and the 8th inning, unfortunately, but I mean, I looked at the box score and those guys looked like they did their jobs. So that's exactly what you want to see, especially because those aren't your like premier relievers. They're not like, they're more like sixth inning guys at this point. Soto, I mean, he definitely has potential to be back end as well as Marte, but I mean, it's still good to see them doing their jobs whenever they're called upon.
Right. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I feel good about the way they pitched tonight, and Marte could be really, really good depth for this team moving forward, the way he's pitching right now. And you might not even need him to pitch in high leverage spots. He's going to have to at some point, but not consistently. And if he can, then that's an even better thing. Like, that's just a plus. So Jonathan says, I wonder how long the Rojas experiment will continue. I doubt they thought he'd be this bad. Yeah, that's kind of what I was just talking about right now, what we've been talking about to start the season. And last night, my question to you, Drew, was, do you think he gets a hit before he gets sent down? Well, he's got the hit now. It just didn't get out of the infield. He got an infield hit tonight, and he legged it out. he swung about 1,000 miles an hour on it, and it dribbled right to the shortstop. But it was soft enough to where he got the hit. My question to you tonight is, I think we're just it's just kind of like counting down the days at this point. I know it's 6 games. I know it's early, but that's genuinely how I feel. So at what point do you think they like he just keeps performing like this? Do you think they just cut the cord and send him down? I'm going to give it the next week and probably half of the week after. And if he still is like only has a hit or two by then, I think it's probably over, like for him, at least for right now, not for the future, but.
Yeah. I mean, I think if come this time next week, if he still doesn't have another hit, then they probably consider just doing it then, because man, he's swinging the bat 500 mile an hour and he's not making any contact. Like I don't really understand what his approach is, honestly. No. I mean, it looks a lot different than last year. I don't know why. I feel like he didn't do that, but maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I don't know. It's a tough situation because like they don't exactly have a good replacement for him.
No. Yeah, not like I said, I'm not saying this is how Witt's going to play the rest of the year. I thought his last at bat, where he worked a 10-pitch at bat and then loops one into center, that was more Whit Merrifield, the Whit Merrifield I'm used to seeing. But the way he's hitting right now, I mean, it's not like you just plug Marsh into center and Witt into left, and that's your answer, right? And Pache, like we will see if they give him a shot, but do you trust him as a long-term guy too? So then at that point, like, I don't know where they go from there. Again, I talked about it last night. Tommy Pham is still a free agent. I don't see them doing that. I certainly think it would make a ton of sense if the price is right. I would love it. I think he's just a really solid baseball player, and I think he would slot right into the middle part of the order, middle/back of the order too, give you some really good depth. But like you said, there's really not, at least right now internally, there's not a surefire fix to that situation right now. So that's the unfortunate part of it.
Yeah, and they don't really have any good outfielders coming in the system at this point, other than maybe Justin Crawford years from now. But like they don't have any AAA or AA guys that are just banging on the door to get to the major leagues. So they're kind of in a crappy spot as far as that goes.
Yeah, and the only other guy would be Muzziotti, who, he hit well in AAA last year, but the word is that at the major league level, he's not expected to be like, he wasn't even expected to be much of an upgrade from Jake Cave last year. So that, I mean, not a surprise from the power perspective. Obviously, Jake Cave would have given you more power last year, but just from a general perspective, I mean, if that's the bar we're setting and he's probably not even there, Muzziotti's at best maybe a defensive guy, and you already have that right now. So that's really the only guy I look at the AAA level. And then maybe Carlos De La Cruz, but he's a project. I mean, that's not a guy you want getting regular at-bats in the big leagues. I don't see him cracking the big league roster at all this year. I just don't think it's there. Maybe in the future it's there, but I don't see it. So yeah, there's really no internal replacement right now.
Right. And if you think Rojas is a swing and miss machine, they bring up De La Cruz, you'll find out what a swing and miss machine is. I mean, that guy has a hole in his swing the size of Jupiter. I mean, I mean, he's definitely got the power and the build to hit a lot of tanks, but I mean, he has terrible swing and miss issues right now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of where we're at. So I don't know, man. I mean, I'm going to keep a little bit of internal hope that Tommy Pham is still on the table, but I just don't expect it. It just to me, it just makes so much sense, but I understand why they're probably not looking that route right now. But anyway, I don't want to spend time talking about that because, again, like I said, I don't see it being realistic. And of course, Steve, any questions you got, send them in the chat. We're always here to answer them. Sully says, I'll take the one step behind defensively with Pache because he's probably two steps ahead of Rojas offensively. Why not give it a shot? At this point, Drew, I mean, we talked about this yesterday. Yeah, like I wouldn't even say like, and I know Sully wasn't saying it this way, but like you could make the case it's not even one step behind Rojas defensively. It's right there. I would say Rojas is just that good that he's in that platinum glove tier, but you're still getting gold glove defense from Pache while he can probably hit 230 for you, even against righties over the course of the year. Is that a long-term solution for them? I don't know, but I think it needs to be tried at some point. I get they're not as high on him as an organization as they are Rojas, but you have to at least give it a shot at this point. I think that's the best move for the team.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much confidence I have in Pache's offense over a full season at this point because we haven't seen it. We haven't seen it yet. Right. I mean, he definitely right now he's definitely better than Rojas, no doubt about it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
But I mean, you and me could go out there and be better than Rojas right now. I mean, that guy he's been terrible. I mean, there's just really no nice way to put it. And that's just unfortunate because he has so much potential, and we really just haven't got to see it yet.
I mean, if Pache can bunt, that's already an upgrade there.
Absolutely.
So it's unfortunate that's the bar right now, but yeah, that's where we're at. And like Steve said, this is a great point too. I mean, coming off of Harper's big game yesterday, you'd think it would jolt the team a little bit, and the complete opposite happened. And they didn't even get jolted by JT's absolute dot to second base to throw out. I forget who was even on base, but I mean, that was a bang, bang throw. It was just awesome. He had it right on the money. So that was cool. That was another thing we got to mention from that game, especially with the wind too. I mean, he threw a laser. He had to, but that didn't even give him a jolt either. So I don't know. What you do with this team at this point with getting a jolt early in the season with the weather playing, but there's what it is.
And it's good to see JT back to that form defensively so far this year, because he's gotten down a couple guys now on really good throws. And last year, it felt like he kind of lacked that at times. And I don't really know why. Maybe it was just the new rules and the base running was a lot more aggressive, and a lot more guys were trying to steal bases last year than they have in the past 5 years.
Right. And it also felt like there were a lot of times where he'd get the ball up to his ear and then he wouldn't have the transfer correct. Yeah. That did happen one time already this season, but for the most part, he has been a lot better, I think, in the first 6 games. So that's encouraging to see. Carter says Rojas just needs to work on hitting the ball and not power swinging every at bat and whiffing it. That's pretty much where we're at this point. I said earlier, Drew, before you got here, he needs to let the ball travel, let it get deep in the strike zone, try to take it the other way, take the outside pitch the other way, and just get on base. Like, you did not need to be swinging for – you don't even need to be swinging for the gaps if you're Rojas. That's not what I'm looking for right now. It's gotten that bad that's not what I'm looking for at this point, but that's pretty self-explanatory. We talked about that a bunch of times already. So,
yeah.
And Mr. Rudy, welcome in. Good to see you in here. Says Marsh choking that bases loaded chance. There goes your chance at everyday player. Yeah, and that's happened a couple of the times the past few days with him and runners in scoring position. A couple times facing lefties too. But I think that's part of it. He needs to get these reps where he does fail against left-handed pitching and learn from it, and at least have the sample there to learn from over the course of the season, right? He's not going to get better if he doesn't choke in those spots. Granted, I didn't like that at bat. It was very quick. He popped it right out to third base. It was unproductive, and you had a shot there. I don't think that's the reason we lost, but he does have to be better against left-handed pitching, obviously. It hasn't been great even against some guys who you could argue he probably should be hitting over the past few days. But at the same time, I do want to see if he gets, I think they're doing a good job. He's not hitting every time against lefties, but today they said, all right, we're going to give him this opportunity. Keep doing that sporadically. It doesn't have to be every single time a lefty's on the mound, but keep giving him those opportunities. And if by July, August, it's still the same thing, you have your answer. But you have to at least let him have a shot, because I think he has progressed in that department over the past year or so.
Yeah, I don't think I think it's a little extreme to say there goes his chance at everyday player, because I mean, they're expecting people to fail. I mean, you're not going to go out there and you're going to hit 1,000 with runners in scoring position, and especially with the same handedness and a guy that doesn't have a ton of experience facing lefties yet in Marsh. So I mean, they're not expecting him to go out there and execute every single time. I mean, if they did, then he'd be playing every day. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah, definitely. And Jonathan says, I feel like Rojas' swing got worse last year versus this year. I would agree with you and Jonathan both, Drew. I don't, again, like I said, I don't think it was good last year. I don't think it was even 302 caliber, even though he hit 302. But I also don't think it was this bad last year either. So I'm with you guys on that. Steven says, yeah, he added muscle. Now he thinks he's a power hitter. That's the other thing. He bulked up. What's the point of swinging that hard if the bulking up didn't do anything in that department? And a lot of it's just, you're going to have to generate power from your lower half too, and from your mechanics. Like, it's not a upper body swing for the fences type of thing. That's the other part of it too. So, and like Mr. Rudy said, we already talked about this a lot, but he's swinging at everything in the bottom of the zone right now. Montas splitter looked like it had him. The sliders are getting him too. He's swinging at almost everything, regardless of it's in the bottom of the zone. But I agree, in the bottom of the zone specifically, that has been an issue for him too. Oh, bless you.
Thank you. And I don't really know what he's looking for right now. It doesn't really seem like he has a plan when he goes up there, and it hasn't seemed like that all year. So, I mean, it's tough for him right now for sure.
Definitely. Robert, welcome in from LA. We appreciate you. A little earlier over there than it is right now. Late night on the East Coast for a baseball game, but here we are. And he says the offense needs to be consistent or you waste good pitching. Yeah, I mean, that sums up the night for you. There's nothing else to say, honestly.
Because outside of those first two games, the pitching's really been fine, honestly. I mean, they've been shutting down lineups the Reds were scorching hot when they came in here. Like they had, I think, like I said yesterday, the best slugging percentage in the NL or in the MLB coming into the series. So cooling them off a little bit has been good for the pitching staff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you saw it too. Like they still had their moments as well as an offense.
Oh, yeah.
They had, I think, 4 or 5 extra base hits tonight. That was the difference. We had the same amount of hits as them, but they got extra base hits and got guys in scoring position right away. Meanwhile, we have Castellanos getting on first base and get picked off. But anyway, enough on that. Carter says Phils need to be more consistent this year and not go from scoring 10 runs in one game and then scoring 1 the next. Yeah, it felt like they used up all their offense yesterday. So, yeah, I don't have anything else to say there. But
yeah, that's just kind of baseball, though. Honestly, I mean, every team does it, so it's just it's gonna be what it's gonna be.
Yeah. Mr. Rudy says Bohm would have put the ball in play. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, he had to pinch hit for Rojas though, which that's the unfortunate part about this. That's the dilemma we're in right now. So, I don't know if he had already been used by then, but point being, I mean, yeah, he probably would have put the ball in play. Do I think he would have come through with runners scoring position? It's possible. He was very good in that spot last year, but he also hit into a lot of double plays last year too. So it could have gone either way. Like what Drew said, you're not going to bat 1,000. So, but right. I mean, I think, Boone probably gives you a better shot there. But then again, like they ended up pinch hitting him for Rojas later anyway. So it's kind of a pick your poison there. But you got to give Marsh those opportunities, and it's early in the season. You got to experiment and see what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, you can't just pull the rug out from under him immediately in the season and be like, hey, you're not facing lefties ever. So, I mean, getting him that at bat, I mean, it might not give him confidence because he didn't come through, but it gives him confidence that he's going to get another opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I don't have much else to say on this. We talk about it. Trey, even JT at times too, who's been pretty good for us. But yeah, guys are swinging a lot of stuff in the bottom of the zone, especially low and outside. Yeah. I mean, he says Mr. Reese says a bunch of dudes playing cricket. I might have preferred to watch cricket instead of the lineup in some of these games so far.
Yeah, they definitely had their struggles, but I think they'll get going here eventually.
Definitely, yeah. Sully says we might be leading the league in line drive hits for outs right now. Bowman Marsh tattooed some balls today. Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier. So we are getting some unlucky breaks this season. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like every time the first couple games Bryce hit a ball hard, it just went right to somebody. It's just unlucky, really. I mean, the Braves, they were getting every time they put the bat on the ball, it was dropping in for a hit, it seemed like. And the opposite was happening for us the entire first series. So that was just really, really annoying, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, even yesterday when Harper goes 3 for 4, he really should have been 4 for 4, but Will Benson makes an incredible play and robs him of a hit there. And there's been I feel like Stott, especially in Marsh, have had so many line drives that have just gone right to left or right field, or even center field too. But they're hitting the ball so well right now, I'm not even concerned about it. Like I think Stott and Marsh have been 2 of the biggest highlights to start the season so far. But Steven says, what's your opinion on how Thompson's handling the pitching in the lineup, with leaving pitchers in too long or taking pitchers out too quick, or his lineups resting people too much? I mean, I'll let you go on first on this one, Drew. I have some thoughts, but I'm curious to hear what you think on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think the lineup, you don't want to, like, every time they have a bad game, you can't change the lineup. That's just not really realistic because guys want to be comfortable in their roles. And, like, you can't be, if they have a bad game, put Turner at leadoff or put Schwarber fourth, something like that. I mean, you just got to let them settle in a little bit and kind of figure out what their role is. And once they get a little more comfortable, they'll start probably coming through a little bit more for you. And as far as the pitching goes, I mean, I don't ever doubt what they do with the pitching most of the time. I mean, there was one situation this year where I think they let somebody face it was Duvall. They let, was it Strom? Strom face Duvall. Yeah. That was the only one that I would question. I mean, I know they probably had their reasons for it, but I mean, that's what I was about to say. They have the reasons for everything they do, and it worked for them really well last year. I mean, they had one of the best pitching staffs in baseball, so it's hard to point fingers at them whenever they make a certain move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's always based on availability too. Like the Brogdon thing was frustrating. He shouldn't have been on the roster, though. That shouldn't have been the guy you were bringing in, but it's either him or Nick Nelson in that spot the other night. Unfortunately, with how guys are available, it's early in the season. You have to keep that in mind. Like these guys can't pitch every day. And yeah, Soto throws one pitch. You also have to remember he's warming up before throwing that one pitch. Like he's getting loose. That's also a lot of pitches on top of that if you're going 3 days in a row. even though he only threw the one pitch. So, or I guess I'd forget if it was 2 days in a row, regardless. But the pitching decisions for the most part, I mean, you could question some of them, but as far as taking guys out early or late, I think it's been mostly good on that. I think Thompson's had a really good feel for that since he's gotten here. The coaching staff as a whole, I think that's been fine. As far as the lineups go too, I mean, I'm cool with the way it's set up right now. The only thing I would say is Castellanos is at 6 is just egregious. I would severely disagree with that based on how he's hitting right now. I think you almost might have to even move him down to 8. I don't think he should be up there, especially not ahead of guys like Stott or Marsh right now. I get Marsh gives you some depth down there, but there's going to be at bats where you could have Marsh or Stott up in that spot and not Castellanos. But I also understand some of that is lefty righty too, based on how you're setting the lineup as well. So, but as far as the lineup goes, I mean, yeah, like Drew said, there's going to be guys who get hot and cold. I'm not talking about the Castellanos and Rojas of the world. I'm talking about a guy like Turner, a guy like Realmuto, Harper, like all these other guys. They're just going to have their hot and cold streaks, right? But you got to continue to ride it out with the way the lineup is. And I'm sure it will be tinkered with here and there, but I honestly like it for the most part. I also want to get your thoughts on Schwarber, Drew, speaking of the lineup, because he was really good again tonight. And he obviously has the home run. He has the walk. He's been awesome to start the season.
Yeah, he looks phenomenal. I don't know what he is doing differently. Maybe he's like, I don't know if he has earlier in the counts, he's selling out for power a little bit more. And then later in the counts, it's like he's bearing down and just kind of taking what he can get. Like, I don't know, he's poking balls all over the place. It's kind of crazy to see, honestly, because last year he had almost as many singles as home runs. And this year he's flying away with the singles and lacking on the home runs a little more. But, I mean, I think you take that, though, because he has such a good eye. And if he can raise his batting average a little bit and still walk the amount that he walked last year, I mean, you're going to have a very, very, very productive player at the top of the lineup.
Yeah. I mean, take a picture right now of his numbers. He's hitting 280 and he's got an 820 plus OPS. So that's not something you're going to see from Schwarber too often, I think, moving forward with his career. But I think he could absolutely hit 230, 240. And the way it's going right now, you could see that being even higher than that. So we'll see how he does as the season moves along. But to have him also come out of the gate hot, he's always been more of a slow starter. We know he's obviously a June guy. That's his month. But to have him come out of the gate like this in the first 6, I'm really, really pleased with how he started the season out. So I wanted to talk about him a little bit with you too. I love what he's doing.
Yeah, I think you said it yesterday. Like, you kind of almost wish that he got the 5-year deal and Castellanos got the 4-year deal because, man, Castellanos being here another, 3 years after this?
Yeah.
Or 2?
Oh, man.
He came here in 21, right?
20. They both came here in 22. So,
man, we are screwed.
Schwarber's got this year, next year, and Castellanos has got this year, next year, and the year after that. So
yeah, they're gonna have to try to move that contract at some point. I think.
They will.
I mean, it'll get easier once it gets down to the last couple of years. But man, he's just costing them so many runs and games at this point. It's just it's crazy.
I don't think you could convince the Guardians to take on that contract for Shane Bieber, even though they need an outfielder. Unfortunately, they also just don't like to spend very much either. So. Yeah, I mean, there's really not any destinations that would make sense right now with him still having 3 years left on his deal. But the way it's going right now, you are going to have to move that probably on the second to last year or the last year of his deal if he can.
Yeah, and like the thing is, if they fly over the tax next year, like the third tax threshold, you could just DFA him, honestly, because I mean, you're just eating the money. But screw it. I mean, he's been so bad. Like. You can replace him with a more productive player, honestly, and I think they would probably go for that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you could probably find another like a bargain deal in free agency that for a couple of years that might produce more for you before getting a more solidified option there, depending whether that's a prospect or whether that's another player who you trade for. I don't know, but and there's also you can make trades too. Like I know Arozarena is coming up on. Kind of that territory where the Rays could look to move him. I don't know if that'll happen now that it's the season and they're probably going to compete. So I wouldn't expect a mid-season trade for him, but he makes a lot of highlight plays. He's not necessarily the best outfielder defensively, but he moves better than Castellanos. I don't think there's any question about that. And he's a very exciting offensive piece too, but he's also not that like Luis Robert caliber player that's going to cost the world to get. I think Arozarena would be expensive, but I think he'd be somewhat affordable too. So just throwing that idea out there. I don't think it'll actually happen because I think there will be teams that will be excited about a guy like Randy, but if you did decide to move on from Cassidy, that's a guy who you could maybe look to replace him with. But I don't know.
Yeah.
It's crazy. We're already talking about this on Game 6 of the year about Castellanos, but that's how it's looked so far. And like Robert said, it's a little early to be anxious at the plate. Take walks and get your hits. Yeah, and some guys are doing that. Other guys aren't. But that completely ruins the lineup depth you were supposed to have with Castellanos at the bottom when you already have Rojas as a black hole down there.
Yeah, it's just been terrible for the bottom of the lineup because he's just been just as bad as Rojas. I mean, his quality of contact is like, at best, it's been pop-ups. Like, it just, I don't know. He's totally lost right now. So is Rojas. And it's really hindered the offense. I think that's like one of the big reasons why they're not producing a lot of runs, because Marsh is sandwiched. Like, Marsh has been very productive, and he's sandwiched in between two guys that are going up to the plate blindfolded with no bat in their hand, basically. I mean, it's just killing you.
Yeah, and you're only going to come up with so many opportunities with runners on when that's the case, too, because either Castellanos is not going to be on, and it's going to get, the inning's going to end, or it's going to flip to you without a runner on, or they're going to walk you like they did in the playoffs just to get to Rojas. So that's kind of where we're at with the bottom of the lineup, and maybe Merrifield can help replace some of that as the year goes on, because I do think now with how things are going, I think he is going to end up playing more than he probably should. But I also don't think he's going to play. They're going to overplay him because I think they understand that they can't do that. But it's unfortunate we're already at that point where even though Merrifield's not playing very well right now, he's at least, there's still been productive at-bats from time to time, like the one tonight. And I think, look, I wasn't super excited about him getting signed here, but you're now looking at a trend right now that could lead to you playing him a lot more often because of that. So, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but I was just kind of saying the same point multiple different ways because I'm frustrated right now.
Yeah, I mean, if Witt ends up having to play 3 or 4 times a week, you're going to see his body probably break down on him like it did last year, and he's going to be very unproductive come the playoffs and all that. So that's definitely not what you want. And, I mean, I could see them – I mean, they'd have to package a heck of a prospect with him, but if you move Castellanos this year, you could trade for a guy that has team control like Luis Robert. I mean, he's definitely going to be on the block, no doubt about it. So,
yeah,
I mean, they could possibly do that. I mean, I'm not saying that's what they're going to do because it's a tough thing to do because you're going to have to go with a really good prospect to do it.
Right. Yeah, and there's also other options too. Like I imagine a guy like Taylor Ward could still be had for the right price. He has some years of control. I've always had a soft spot for him as a baseball player. I am curious to see how he does this year too. I believe he's still playing with the Angels, if I'm not mistaken, but we'll keep an eye on that. Again, there's always still Tommy Pham if you just want to go sign someone. That's also a possibility, but that's only going to be a possibility for so long. So there are options. I'm trying to look if the Marlins have anyone that would make sense. I mean, I don't really see them dealing any of their outfielders, to be honest. They're all fairly young guys, and De La Cruz, I mean, they're not dealing. I don't really want Chisholm anyway, but Sanchez as well, Jesus Sanchez, like, I don't think that would be smart for the Phillies, nor do I think the Marlins are going to be looking to deal those guys specifically. I think they would, but I think because they're younger, they might want a little more. And I just don't think it makes sense. I don't think they're necessarily fits for the Phillies for what they're looking for right now, but there could always be options. So a couple comments here too. Drew, I've talked about this the last couple of days. Sully asked, can Cody Clemens play left for us? I heard he's been doing well. He has played well so far in AAA, but my stance on this, Drew. So I'll let you take this one, and I'll just
I think we can both. I'm speaking for both of us here. We just he's not going to be a productive major league player for any length of time. I mean, he might give you a good week here and there, but he's not an everyday player in the MLB. I mean, he's a fine bench player because he can play a bunch of different positions, but at the end of the day, he's at best like a 240 hitter in the major leagues, maybe, if that. I mean,
generous too.
Yeah, and I mean, he's not going to be an everyday guy, unfortunately. I mean, I love Clemens because he's a good clubhouse guy. Obviously, I mean, he looks like everybody loves him. So, but yeah, he's just not an everyday MLB player, unfortunately.
Yeah, he's just a left-handed bench bat at best. So
yeah.
Kerkering pitched in AAA on a rehab assignment, and then I believe it was today or yesterday he pitched down in Clearwater, and yeah, he had a clean inning. They were having the Clearwater roster and the Phillies like a development roster also
Right.
play him. So, and he pitched well again. Like I said, at a clean inning, he looked fine apparently. So, yeah, Kerkering, I think we talked about it, Drew. He's probably going to be a guy who once his IL stint is up, I think he'll be ready to come.
Yeah, that's 6 days from now, so he'll be back, and they need him.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm excited to see him too. Like I was a little sad. We would have seen him at this point for sure. So I'm a little sad he didn't start the year healthy. But what are you going to do, man? I mean, the flu can be brutal if you catch a bad strain of it. Like that's tough.
I mean, it's so early in the season. Like the only thing you want is for him to come back and be ready and be healthy. That's the number one concern, and I think that's where the Phillies were as well, because they just put him on the IL and said, build yourself up and be ready to go.
Yeah. God forbid that flu would have spread too if he would have stuck around some of the guys as well. So thank the Lord we avoided that. But
I mean, maybe Castellanos would be better, honestly.
Flu game, yeah. But Steven says, do you think Spencer will stay in the rotation? I know it's only one game. He looked good. Yeah, that's obviously a topic of conversation right now, so we should address it. I think as soon as Taijuan is back, they're going to insert him right back into the rotation, which is unfortunate because I would personally like to see Turnbull pitch 4 or 5 starts before making that decision to just put Taijuan right back in there. But they paid Taijuan. Obviously, they believe he can be a really effective innings eater, whereas Turnbull was kind of just take a chance on a guy, and if injuries happen, he will be in that spot. And he pitched really well the other night, albeit with bad conditions too. But I think they are going to put Taijuan back in there. And also the problem is you put Taijuan in the bullpen. He's not a guy who can pitch 1 inning because he's terrible in the first inning and his velocity's down. That's an absolute nightmare. So while Turnbull probably could pitch well out of the bullpen, like Pinto just did the other night, I don't think Walker could. So that's where I think on that.
Yeah, I think Turnbull is like an A+ long man if he's healthy.
Yeah,
because he is nasty. I mean, he has such good stuff, and I mean, if you put him in the bullpen and you can use him, like say, Ranger has a short start or somebody like that has a short start, you can bring him in and he can give you 4 innings if you need him to, and that's huge because he's a quality pitcher. And most long men are just kind of like go in there and wave the white flag basically, but he's definitely not that. So it'll be huge to have him back in the bullpen, honestly.
Yeah, and in a situation where you're in that 10th inning again with a Brogdon type of guy, Turnbull's in. If you have Walker healthy and Turnbull's in the bullpen for that, he could pitch that inning and pitch very well for you. And guys are going to get hurt. The rotation's not going to be healthy the full year, right? Like there's going to be opportunities for him. I think he will start probably. My guess would be I'm going to predict he starts probably 10 to 15 games this year for the Major League squad. And I would say he's probably going to pitch, I don't know, somewhere around 30, 40 total. That's kind of my expectation. 10, 15 might be a little ambitious, but I just think there's opportunities. There's times where they might want to go 6-man for a couple of weeks just to get some guys some rest too, even though Wheeler isn't a huge fan of that. But they're not going to be doing that the whole season. My point being, there's going to be opportunities for him to start and for him to pitch. And he can still be a really important piece even out of the bullpen because he's only pitching 1 inning. I mean, his velocity is probably going to be really good by the end of the year, especially in the first inning. So if that's his role, he could even be an important bullpen piece come playoffs. Yeah,
I mean, he definitely has the stuff to pitch in the bullpen. That's the main thing you need whenever you're going to the bullpen. You need to have good stuff because if you're coming out there throwing 1 inning and you have kind of like a bad fastball or like your breaking balls aren't breaking, I mean, you're going to get shelled more often than not because it's just the way the MLB is nowadays, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I think in the pod whenever we signed Turnbull, I think if he's 1 year, $7 million, right?
I think it was 4, and the 2 were in incentives. 2 of them were incentives. So
okay, so I think like if he gives you 10 starts and he gives you 50 innings, you got your money's worth. It's great because there's like no downside to his contract. Even if he ends up being terrible, you can just move him on and be done with it.
Yeah, even yesterday was like a big step forward to getting your money's worth out of that contract.
Right.
You weren't expecting that out of him in start 1.
Yep.
Let alone going the 5 innings too with a pitch count. I thought he would have maybe gone 4 2/3, 4 1/3. He went all 5. And he got the win yesterday. Good for him, man. But I mean, I don't have anything else, Drew. I think we covered a lot, even more than this game provided us with. There was nothing to talk about from the game, honestly, outside of the basics. But now we're going into an off day tomorrow. They got that game in. Both teams got their off day, so no complaining there. And we head to DC now. You just have to take care of business this weekend. And
you got to kick them in the mouth.
It's too early in the season to talk about must wins, but you're going to play Washington and St. Louis in 6 road games. There is no reason they shouldn't win at least 4 of those road games. And I would go as far to say they should win 5 of those games because you're going to drop one. Like, you're not going to go 6-0. If they do, that would be awesome. And honestly, I wouldn't blame people for saying the expectation should be 6-0 with those teams. But with the bullpen usage, with all that, like there's going to be a game or 2 where they might drop it. But there's no reason they should split this road series.
Yeah, I didn't get to talk about this, but Nick Nelson looked fine, honestly. I mean, he's looked good the last couple games he's pitched, and that's definitely what you want to see.
Yeah, he's pitching in his role. I mean, that's all we need him to do. Again, like I said, it was 3-1. He gives up a couple hits, gives up a run, but I mean, we're down. I mean, that it's just his role is to eat an inning or more than that at times. So I don't think he's going to be on the roster the whole year, but he was fine in my opinion. I don't really take a close enough look at his stuff or how it was moving or anything, but. Anything else you wanted to talk about before we hop off, Drew?
Nope, I think we covered it.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Steven, Robert, Soli, Mr. Rudy, Carter, Jonathan. I think I got everyone in here. Even Ben at the beginning there too. Says we're a 65-win team. So we'll take note of that. But he said he's going to become a Dodgers fan now. I don't blame you with having Teoscar on your fantasy team right now. But
for real.
Yeah. Robert says, always good to be around Phillies fans or be with Phillies fans because I'm surrounded by Dodgers fans. Yeah, we're glad to provide that community for you here, Robert. So, again, I got the Discord at the top of the chat. It's pinned. We appreciate all you guys who are in the Discord. We appreciate all you guys who are just subscribed to the channel who aren't in the Discord. But thank you guys so much. We appreciate it. Anything you want to say, Drew, before we sign off?
Nope. Everybody have a great night. Enjoy the off day tomorrow. A little stress-free. I mean, we'll probably be back this weekend with a pod. So look forward to that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you guys again. We'll be back when there are games to play again. And hopefully we're talking about a win on Friday night. But we will see you guys then. God bless y'all and go Phils. Peace.
Peace.